Andre Brooks, a renowned athlete whose dignity was shattered in an instant, bringing down everything he had worked for. In that moment, when he was torn apart and humiliated, not only did the shine of his hard-earned success fade, but a deep wound was left on his soul. This story takes you into the depths of hidden truths, where the loss of pride and the fire of revenge collide, sparking a journey that will unravel the most profound human emotions. For a couple seconds, Andre Brooks, a celebrated athlete whose hard-earned reputation was brutally shattered in a moment of public humiliation. In that devastating instant, as he was forcefully cast aside, the light of his perseverance was nearly extinguished, leaving a deep scar on his soul. This gripping tale will pull you into a world of shattered pride, raw vulnerability, and a relentless quest for redemption. Before diving into this gripping tale, let us know where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch more inspiring stories like this one. Nora Cross moved through the busy terminal with a measured grace that belied the storm raging inside her. The early morning light filtered through towering glass walls, bathing everything in a soft glow that made the world seem both gentle and fragile. Passengers bustled about with their luggage, each lost in their own thoughts and destinations. Yet amid this ordinary scene, Nora's heart carried a secret burden, a memory of betrayal so deep it had etched scars on her soul. She was a dedicated flight attendant, known for her impeccable service and calm demeanor. But today, as she made her way toward the boarding gate, the routine of her job was interrupted by an unexpected reflection. In a large mirror near the departure boards, Nora caught sight of herself and in the background, the image of a young man who seemed striking in his quiet confidence. His features were relaxed, his gaze steady. He was Andre Brooks. Though he sat among a cluster of passengers, his presence was impossible to miss, a gentle force that seemed to command attention without effort. For a fraction of a second, Nora's pulse quickened. The sight of Andre stirred memories she had long tried to keep buried. She recalled a time when trust was a treasure, freely given until it was shattered by those who had promised to protect it. A memory of whispered assurances and broken promises surfaced unbidden. The reflection of Andre's calm, yet intense eyes made her think of that long-ago night when her heart had been betrayed, leaving her to wonder if some secrets of the past were destined to resurface at the most inopportune moments. As the boarding announcement echoed over the loudspeakers, Nora pushed the thoughts aside and stepped forward with practiced professionalism. She moved along the narrow aisle of the airplane, her steps measured and her expression composed. The cabin was a world of its own, a sanctuary of soft, ambient light and muted colors that usually brought comfort. Today, however, every detail seemed charged with hidden meaning. While checking on the passengers, Nora's eyes inadvertently met Andre's. In that brief encounter, time seemed to slow. Andre offered a courteous nod and a small, kind smile that should have eased any tension. For a fleeting moment, Nora felt a spark of connection, a silent acknowledgement of shared human experience. Yet, beneath that brief exchange lay a current of uncertainty. Nora wondered if that smile, so gentle and unassuming, might hide complexities that resonated with her own inner turmoil. As she continued with her rounds, the hum of the aircraft's engines and the soft murmur of conversations formed a steady backdrop. Every so often, the memory of that first unexpected glance would resurface. Nora's thoughts drifted back to a time when promises had been made in the quiet hours of the night, a time when her heart had dared to trust only to be met with betrayal. The weight of that memory was like an invisible chain, tightening with every reminder of what had been lost. The reflection of Andre's presence had planted a seed of mistrust, not only toward others, but even toward her own ability to forgive and move on. Outside the window, the runway and distant city lights merged into a shifting tapestry of shadow and illumination. The view was breathtaking, yet it only deepened Nora's inner conflict. Every detail, from the soft rustling of a plastic bag in the overhead compartment to the gentle clink of a coffee cup being set on a tray, seemed to echo with the possibility of deception. Even routine moments took on a mysterious air, as if the mundane were layered with hidden messages that only her troubled heart could decipher. In the midst of this internal strife, the airplane began its ascent. The vibration of the engines and the subtle tilt of the cabin were a stark reminder that they were leaving behind the familiar ground, a metaphor, Nora mused, for her own struggle to escape the grip of past hurts. She moved with a sense of duty, yet every step felt burdened by the knowledge that the seeds of deception had already been sown in her heart. Each interaction, each fleeting look shared with Andre, was charged with unspoken questions about loyalty, trust, and the painful echoes of past betrayals. Andre, for his part, sat quietly in his seat, his mind clearly occupied with thoughts of his own. Though his exterior was calm, there was an unmistakable depth to his eyes, a trace of battles fought both on the field and in the quiet recesses of his private life. He had earned his reputation as a dedicated athlete, overcoming obstacles that many deemed insurmountable. Yet, like Nora, he bore the marks of life's harsher lessons. In the gentle slump of his shoulders and the distant look in his eyes, one could sense that he, too, was haunted by memories of pain and loss. The cabin, filled with the soft murmur of conversations and the occasional rustle of a magazine page, became a space where time seemed to both stand still and race forward simultaneously. The routine of the flight was punctuated by moments of silence that were heavy with meaning. As Nora passed by, offering a polite smile and a nod to each passenger, her mind wandered. She recalled the words of someone who had once told her that trust was the most delicate gift one could give, easily shattered and nearly impossible to rebuild. Those words reverberated now with a bitter truth. Every so often, a passenger's laugh or a whispered conversation would pull Nora back to the present. The sounds, ordinarily comforting in their familiarity, now seemed to underscore the isolation she felt. She wondered how it was possible for so many to carry on with such light-hearted ease when the shadows of their pasts loomed so large for her. The contrast was striking. Here were families sharing joyful moments, business travelers focused on future success, and children oblivious to the weight of history. And then there was she, Nora Cross, a woman caught in the web of her own memories, struggling to reconcile the past with the present. Andre's occasional glances in her direction did not go unnoticed. Each time their eyes met, a silent dialogue passed between them, a mixture of understanding, curiosity, and a cautious wariness. It was as if both sensed that the encounter was more than a simple crossing of paths. There was a hidden significance, an unspoken question that neither was ready to voice. Nora's heart would race briefly at these moments, a reminder of a vulnerability she had long tried to bury under layers of professionalism. A sudden, gentle tremor of turbulence rippled through the cabin, jolting Nora out of her reverie. She paused momentarily to steady herself, her hand tightening around a service cart. For a brief second, the trembling plane mirrored the trembling within her, a reminder that even in moments of outward calm, the undercurrents of life's uncertainties could surface without warning. The mild shaking passed as quickly as it had come, leaving behind a silence that was almost palpable. Nora's eyes closed for a moment as she took a deep breath, trying to regain the composure she so carefully maintained. In that suspended moment of calm, her thoughts drifted back to the memory that had been stirred earlier by Andre's reflection. The recollection was vivid, a night filled with whispered promises that turned into bitter lies. She remembered the shock, the devastation of finding that the one person she had trusted most had not been what they appeared to be. The betrayal had cut deep, leaving a scar that, despite the passage of time, had never fully healed. Now, as she looked toward Andre, she couldn't help but wonder if he might one day reveal a similar hidden truth. The thought was unsettling, planting the seed of mistrust even deeper. As the plane cruised steadily at high altitude, Nora resumed her duties. She moved from row to row, offering assistance and exchanging pleasantries with the passengers, all while her mind remained adrift in a sea of memories and doubts. The soft clink of a cup being set on a table, the rustle of a newspaper, even the distant murmur of a child's laughter. All these ordinary sounds seemed to take on an extraordinary quality in that moment. Each noise was like a note in a symphony of subtle reminders, playing a melody that spoke of loss, hope, and the ever-present possibility of redemption. Andre, seated by the window, occasionally scribbled something in a small notebook. His focus was broken only by the view outside, a vast panorama of clouds and fading light, a reminder of the endless possibilities that lay beyond the horizon. Yet his eyes held a quiet sadness, a depth that suggested he was not immune to the pains of his past. He thought of victories and challenges alike, of the moments when triumph felt fleeting and the future uncertain. In the gentle interplay of light and shadow outside his window, he found echoes of his own inner conflict. For Nora, every interaction on the flight was now tinted with a sense of foreboding. The routine exchange of smiles and greetings had become a delicate dance, a balancing act between duty and the hidden wounds of her past. The face of each passenger was a brief distraction, a momentary reprieve from the introspection that weighed heavily on her. But even in the laughter of a child or the friendly banter of a fellow traveler, she could not escape the feeling that something was amiss, a subtle hint that deception had already taken root. The atmosphere in the cabin grew more layered as the flight continued. Passengers settled into a comfortable routine, unaware of the inner battle waging within one of their caretakers. Nora's thoughts were a tangled mix of hope and despair. She recalled a time when she had believed in the promise of new beginnings, when every flight had felt like a step toward a brighter future. Now, however, each step was shadowed by the memories of past heartbreak and the growing suspicion that perhaps some wounds could never truly heal. As the hours passed, the quiet murmurs of the cabin created a background rhythm to her introspection. Nora found herself thinking about the nature of trust, how fragile it was, and how easily it could be shattered by a single act of betrayal. The memory of that fateful night, so long ago yet still potent, surfaced repeatedly in her mind. Each recollection was accompanied by a sharp pang of loss, as if the very act of remembering was a betrayal in itself. In the midst of her reverie, Nora noticed that even small gestures from the passengers began to register differently. A kind word from a stranger, a shared smile between two colleagues, all seemed to carry layers of meaning that transcended their apparent simplicity. She wondered if trust could ever be restored once broken, or if the seeds of deception, planted so long ago, would continue to sprout bitter fruit. Andre's occasional glances over at her, filled with quiet concern and understanding, did little to ease her internal conflict. Instead, they served as a reminder that even those who appeared gentle and kind could harbor secrets of their own. Each time their eyes met, Nora's mind raced with unspoken questions. Could he be trusted? Was his calm demeanor a shield for hidden sorrows? The uncertainty gnawed at her, intensifying the internal struggle between hope and fear. High above the earth, the airplane continued its journey into a twilight sky, where the last rays of the sun mingled with the emerging stars. The view from the window was both majestic and humbling, a constant reminder of the vast world beyond the confines of the cabin. Yet for Nora, that beauty was bittersweet. It underscored the transient nature of every moment, the delicate balance between light and shadow, trust and betrayal. As the plane began its slow descent toward its destination, Nora's thoughts grew even more introspective. She realized that this flight was more than just a means of travel. It was a turning point, a moment when the seeds of deception she had long carried would either be confronted or left to fester. With every mile that passed beneath them, the past and the present converged in her mind, merging into a single, unyielding force that demanded resolution. In that quiet, suspended moment between day and night, Nora made a silent promise to herself. She vowed that no matter how deep the wounds of the past, she would face the uncertain future with courage. Even if mistrust and betrayal had once threatened to consume her, she believed there was still a chance for healing, a chance for understanding, and, perhaps one day, forgiveness. That promise was a small spark of hope in the darkness, a belief that even the most painful memories could one day give way to a new beginning. As the wheels of the airplane touched down on the runway and the cabin lights brightened for landing, Nora took one final, deep breath. The seeds of deception had been sown during this flight, planted by chance encounters, by unhealed wounds, and by the relentless pull of memories. Yet in that same moment, a fragile hope took root. A hope that, in time, truth might prevail over betrayal, and that the scars of yesterday might be transformed into the strength needed for tomorrow. Nora stepped off the plane with a heavy heart, but also with a newfound resolve. The day's mysterious events had set her on a path she could no longer ignore, a path where every moment, every interaction, would be colored by the interplay of trust and mistrust. And though she carried the weight of her past like an unyielding burden, she also carried the quiet determination to seek redemption, to rebuild what had been broken, and to find a way to let go of the seeds of deception that had long haunted her. In the soft, uncertain light of the new day, as passengers dispersed into the awakening city, Nora knew that her journey was only beginning. The unanswered questions, the silent glances exchanged with Andre, and the memories of long-buried betrayals would all play their part in the unfolding story of her life. And as she walked away from the terminal, with the echoes of the flight still resonating in her heart, she carried with her a single, enduring truth, that even in the face of deception, there remained a promise of a future where trust could one day be restored. Nora stepped off the plane into a cool, gray morning at the airport, her heart still heavy with the memories of the flight. The soft murmur of voices and the distant hum of luggage wheels on tiled floors seemed normal to everyone else. But for her, each sound echoed with an undercurrent of warning. As she made her way through the terminal, her mind replayed the silent exchanges and the painful recollections stirred by Andre's calm yet guarded eyes. Today, the routine of her job was about to be shattered by a choice that would force her to confront the hidden motives of her past. Outside the terminal, the chill of early autumn greeted her as she stepped into the parking area. Nora's breath plumed in the crisp air, and for a moment, she paused, feeling the weight of decisions made long ago. In the crowd of travelers and staff, a dark-suited man appeared to be watching her from a distance. His presence was unremarkable at first glance, a brief glimpse of an ordinary face in the sea of commuters, but something in the set of his jaw and the intensity of his gaze hinted at a deeper purpose. Nora's phone vibrated in her pocket. Expecting a routine message from the airline, she checked the screen, only to find a number she did not recognize. The message was short. Your past will not stay hidden much longer. Choose wisely. Her heart pounded. The words were ambiguous yet menacing, leaving her with a chill that was not solely from the cool air. 1,000 questions rushed through her mind. Who was sending this, and what did they want? The message seemed to beckon her into a world she had long tried to forget. Meanwhile, not far away, Andre lingered near the baggage claim, still trying to shake off the lingering unease from the flight. His eyes scanned the room as he clutched his notebook tightly. He had always found solace in writing, a way to sort through his own tangled thoughts and memories. Yet, today, as he sat on a bench waiting for his bag, a subtle shift in the atmosphere made him tense. He noticed a small, leather-bound envelope left on the seat next to him. It bore no return address, and his name was written in neat, deliberate handwriting on the front. With a mix of curiosity and apprehension, he opened the envelope and read the note inside. Not all truths are meant to be forgotten. The choice you make now will echo in the future. The note disturbed him deeply. It spoke of consequences and choices, hinting at secrets buried under layers of time. Andre's mind raced as he tried to recall any past incident that might connect with this cryptic message. He knew he had overcome many challenges on the field, but this was different, a challenge of the spirit, one that probed his inner life. As he tucked the note away, he couldn't help but wonder if someone from his past had found a way to re-enter his life, or if it was a warning from a stranger with hidden motives. Back outside, Nora had taken refuge in a quiet corner of the parking lot, leaning against the cool metal of a service vehicle. The mysterious text had unsettled her, and now she felt a mix of fear and determination. She had long carried the scars of betrayal, memories of promises broken and trust violated. The message seemed designed to reopen those wounds, but it also presented her with a choice: to ignore the past and continue the routine, or to confront the demons that had shaped her life. As she wrestled with her emotions, the dark-suited man reappeared, this time moving closer with deliberate steps. Nora's pulse quickened as she observed him. He did not speak at first, merely closed the distance between them. His eyes were intense but not overtly hostile, and his manner was measured, as if he carried burdens of his own. For a long, silent moment, they regarded each other. Then, in a low and steady voice, he said, "Miss Cross, I believe you owe it to yourself to know the truth." His words were neither a threat nor a promise. They were an invitation, a push toward a confrontation with secrets she had tried so hard to bury. Her instinct was to step back and walk away, to ignore the man's words and the echo of the text message still ringing in her mind. But something in his tone, a hint of sorrow beneath the stern exterior, made her hesitate. "Who are you?" she asked cautiously, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. He paused, as if weighing whether to reveal more. "My name is not important," he replied, "but what I bring is. There are forces at work, hidden in plain sight, that have long determined the course of our lives. Your past, the events you fought to forget, are about to converge with the present. You must decide whether to face them head-on or let them control you." Nora felt her resolve waver. The idea that her long-suppressed memories might be used against her filled her with dread, yet it also stirred a spark of defiance. In that moment, the ordinary world around her, the bustling airport, the routine of travel, seemed to collapse into insignificance. A pivotal choice stood before her: remain trapped in the cycle of avoidance, or risk opening old wounds in search of clarity. Her thoughts drifted back to the memories of that painful night, of betrayal so deep it had reshaped her identity. Could she dare to revisit that darkness? Across the terminal, Andre had found his own crossroads. The cryptic note had awakened a series of recollections he had long kept hidden. Details of a contract signed in haste, promises made under duress, and an association with people whose intentions were murky at best. Every time he flipped a page in his notebook, he recalled moments when decisions had been forced upon him, leaving him uncertain of who to trust. The note now felt like a challenge, a call to revisit decisions that might unravel the carefully constructed life he had built after so many betrayals. As Andre looked around, his eyes landed on a familiar figure, an old friend from his past who now appeared unexpectedly in the crowd. The friend's expression was difficult to read, and for a moment, Andre wondered if their sudden reappearance was a mere coincidence. But then, the friend's gaze met his, and something unspoken passed between them, a mixture of caution and regret. "Andre," the friend said softly, "we need to talk. There are things you must know before it's too late." Andre felt the weight of those words settle over him like a heavy fog. He knew that this was no ordinary reunion. It was a signal that the carefully concealed truths of his past were beginning to stir, threatening to disrupt the fragile balance he had maintained. The friend's tone was earnest, and the urgency in his voice left no room for casual conversation. It was clear that hidden motives were at play, and that a betrayal, perhaps even one orchestrated by someone close, was looming on the horizon. In that moment, as Andre's thoughts collided with memories and forebodings of impending conflict, he made a silent vow. He would not run from the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The note in his hand, the friend's cryptic message, and the intensity of the unspoken exchanges all pointed to a convergence of past and present, a collision that would force him to choose between confronting old ghosts or allowing them to control his future. Nora, too, found herself at a similar impasse. The stranger's words and the mysterious text had created a fissure in the steady facade she had maintained for so long. As she stood in the quiet recess of the parking lot, the decision before her crystallized. Either retreat into the safety of oblivion or step forward into a realm of uncertainty where betrayal and redemption might intertwine. Her life had been built on the foundation of survival, of doing what was necessary to protect herself from further harm. But now, the choice was more than just a question of safety. It was a matter of reclaiming her identity, of facing the hidden motives that had driven so many of her painful experiences. The dark-suited man, sensing her inner turmoil, leaned in slightly. "I am not your enemy," he said softly, "but I cannot stand by and watch you drown in the past. There are people who have hidden their true intentions for far too long. If you are willing to listen, I can help you understand the choices you face." His eyes held a glimmer of compassion that contrasted with the stern set of his features. Nora hesitated, her eyes searching his face for any sign of deceit. Yet the sincerity in his tone was undeniable. She knew that trusting him might lead her into even deeper peril, but refusing could mean forever being shackled by her unresolved memories. With a trembling breath, she replied, "Tell me what you know. I'm not sure what I want, but I know that I cannot keep running from what I fear." The man nodded, his expression softening. "There is a network of secrets, spanning years and touching lives in ways you cannot imagine. I have seen the threads of betrayal woven through the very fabric of our community, through people we once trusted, who now hide behind masks of respectability. Your story, the pain you carry, is part of that tapestry. And soon, the choices you make will determine not only your own future, but the future of those around you." As his words sank in, Nora felt the enormity of the choice before her. She realized that every moment of denial, every effort to bury her past, had only made her more vulnerable to the hidden forces at work. The stranger's message was clear. A storm was coming, one that would force her to confront the very people and events she had tried to escape. The air around her seemed to thicken with anticipation, and she knew that she stood at the brink of a transformation, a point where the status quo would be irreversibly altered. Across the terminal, Andre's friend beckoned him to a quiet corner away from the bustle. The friend's eyes were filled with a mixture of regret and urgency as he began to speak in hushed tones. "Andre, I have information that you need to hear. It concerns our past and the people who have been pulling the strings behind the scenes. There are forces at work that have led us to this moment, a moment when trust is a luxury we can no longer afford. I know it's difficult to believe, but some of those you once considered allies have betrayed us in ways that cut deeper than any loss on the field." Andre listened intently, his grip on the notebook tightening. Each word from his friend felt like a revelation, a piece of a puzzle he had not known was missing. The friend continued, "There is a name you must remember, a name that has surfaced time and again, Maria. It is a name that connects many of the shadows in our past. I fear that the decisions we made in ignorance of the truth are now coming back to haunt us. We must decide if we are to stand by and let history repeat itself or take action to protect what little we have left." The mention of Maria sent a shiver down Andre's spine. He had heard whispers of her involvement before, vague stories that had once seemed insignificant. Now, faced with this undeniable warning, he felt the full impact of betrayal, a betrayal not only of trust, but of the very essence of his identity. His friend's voice was resolute, and in that quiet moment, Andre knew that he could no longer remain passive. The choices of the past were converging with the present, and the path forward would be defined by his willingness to face the truth. As the morning unfolded, both Nora and Andre found themselves isolated by the weight of the messages they had received. The once familiar rhythm of their daily lives had been disrupted by an inciting conflict, a collision of past and present that left no room for complacency. Nora retreated to a small, dimly lit cafe near the airport, seeking solace in a cup of black coffee and the anonymity of a quiet corner. There, she opened a worn notebook and began to write, trying to make sense of the day's events. The act of writing became a meditation, a way to unravel the tangled threads of betrayal and hope that now intertwined in her heart. Andre, too, sought refuge in solitude. He found himself wandering the quiet corridors of a hotel near the airport, each step echoing with the urgency of decisions yet to be made. In the solitude of his room, he spread out the notes he had collected, the cryptic envelope, the messages from his friend, and scattered fragments of memories that had resurfaced with startling clarity. The choice was stark: continue to live in the safe confines of denial, or confront the hidden forces that threatened to upend everything he had built. In the hours that followed, the seed of deception began to sprout into full-blown conflict. The mysterious messages were not isolated events, but part of a larger pattern, a network of hidden motives that sought to exploit the vulnerabilities of those who dared to trust. Nora's resolve hardened as she read over the words she had written. She knew that the decision she faced was more than personal. It was a turning point that could alter the lives of everyone caught in the web of betrayal. Outside, the day grew brighter, yet the promise of light was tempered by the shadows of uncertainty. The quiet streets, the rustle of leaves in the wind, and the distant sounds of life all carried an undercurrent of change. For Nora and Andre, the inciting incident of this day had forced them to confront the reality that the status quo was no longer an option. The choices they made now, choices rooted in courage and honesty, would echo in the days to come. In that moment of reckoning, Nora closed her notebook and took a deep breath. The path ahead was fraught with risk, but she resolved that she would not be a passive victim of her own past. Instead, she would seek out the truth, no matter how painful it might be, and in doing so, perhaps find a way to heal the wounds that had long festered in her soul. The hidden motives, the betrayals yet to be revealed, they would no longer remain in the shadows. Similarly, Andre sat by his window, the early light casting long shadows across the room. He realized that the cryptic note and his friend's urgent words were not random occurrences, but signals of a deeper conspiracy. There was a betrayal looming, a betrayal that would challenge everything he believed about loyalty, honor, and the cost of truth. Determined to uncover the layers of deception, he began to plan his next steps. He resolved to reach out to those he once trusted, to ask the difficult questions that could reveal the hidden forces at play. As the morning advanced into afternoon, the tension in the air grew palpable. Both Nora and Andre understood that the choice they now faced was not merely about confronting a single incident, but about reshaping their lives in the face of betrayal and hidden motives. Their paths, though separate, were now intertwined by the force of destiny, a force that would propel them into a future where trust, once shattered, might only be rebuilt through sacrifice and the relentless pursuit of truth. In that charged moment, the inciting incident had done more than disrupt the status quo. It had ignited a spark that promised to unravel old lies and expose the hidden betrayals that had haunted them for years. The choice was clear: to retreat into the safety of denial or step forward into the light of an uncertain future, armed with the knowledge that every truth, no matter how painful, held the key to redemption. Nora and Andre, each in their own way, took the first tentative steps on this new path. The messages they received that day were harbingers of change, warnings of the storm that was gathering on the horizon. And as they resolved to confront the challenges ahead, they carried with them a quiet determination, a belief that the truth, however elusive, was worth the risk of betrayal, and that only by facing the hidden motives of the past could they hope to secure a future free from its lingering shadows. The day drew to a close with the promise of answers yet to be discovered, and as night fell, both Nora and Andre knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The inciting incident had set in motion events that would force them to choose between old loyalties and new beginnings, a choice that would define not only their own destinies, but the fate of everyone caught in the intricate web of deception. Nora sat alone in a small, quiet corner of a nearly empty lounge, the soft hum of distant conversations barely reaching her. The events of the past day weighed on her like an invisible shroud. Every whispered word, every furtive glance exchanged during the flight, now seemed to be part of a far greater puzzle, a web of lies that stretched far beyond her own troubled past. In the subdued light of the afternoon, she opened a worn journal and began to write, her pen scratching out words that attempted to capture the restless turmoil inside her. Across town, Andre sat in the sparse confines of his hotel room, the cryptic note and his friend's urgent message still echoing in his mind. He leafed through pages of scribbled memories in his own notebook, trying to connect the fragments of his past with the present unease. His thoughts were filled with the faces of old friends and lost allies, and he could not shake the feeling that a betrayal was looming, a betrayal that might shatter the fragile new life he was trying to build. In the days following that fateful morning, both Nora and Andre found themselves drawn into conversations they had long avoided. At a discreet cafe near the airport, Nora met with a former colleague, Simone, whose soft eyes masked a troubled past of her own. Over steaming cups of coffee, their dialogue flowed hesitantly at first, each word measured and cautious. "I've been thinking about what happened," Nora confessed quietly, stirring her drink absent-mindedly. "It's like every time I try to forget, the past comes rushing back. I keep wondering if I can ever truly move on." Simone's gaze was empathetic. Sometimes the past isn't something you can leave behind. It becomes part of who you are, but you must decide if it controls you or if you control it. Her tone was gentle, but carried an undercurrent of urgency. Nora sighed, her eyes drifting to the rain-streaked window. "I fear that if I don't confront these memories, they'll keep haunting me. But the thought of facing them head-on, it terrifies me." At that moment, Simone leaned forward. "There's something else you need to know," she whispered. "I overheard someone talking about a connection between you and that dark-suited man you encountered yesterday. They mentioned a name, Maria. I'm not sure what it means, but it sounds like there's more at play here than just old wounds." Nora's heart pounded as Simone's words sank in. The name Maria had been a distant echo in her memory, an echo of betrayal, of secrets long hidden. "Maria," she repeated slowly. "I thought I had put that part of my life behind me." Simone reached out, placing a comforting hand over Nora's. "Sometimes the past resurfaces when we least expect it. Just be careful, Nora. There are forces at work here that neither of us fully understands." Elsewhere, Andre had agreed to meet his old friend, Marcus, in a quiet park far from prying eyes. The afternoon sun filtered through leafy branches as they found a secluded bench, and Marcus's expression was one of solemn determination. "Andre, you must listen to me," Marcus began, his voice low and earnest. "I have seen things, heard things, that make me believe that there are people close to you who have betrayed your trust. This isn't just about old rivalries or business deals gone wrong. It's personal." Andre frowned, his eyes narrowing. "Personal? Marcus, I'm trying to rebuild, to move on from all of that. Who could possibly be betraying me now?" Marcus hesitated, then spoke in a hushed tone. "There is someone named Maria. I know you've heard that name before, but you never took it seriously. But I have reason to believe that Maria is not who she appears to be. I've seen messages, overheard conversations. It seems she has been manipulating events from behind the scenes, and she may have been the one who set all this in motion." A chill ran down Andre's spine. "Manipulating events? You mean orchestrating the very messages I received?" he asked, voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. Marcus nodded gravely. "Yes. I think that the betrayal you fear is not just a random act. It's part of a larger plan, a plan to undermine everything you've worked for. And if we're not careful, it could destroy you." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with foreboding. Andre's mind raced. He had always believed that loyalty was the strongest bond, yet here was evidence that someone he had once trusted might have been working against him all along. The revelation was a shock, a betrayal that cut deeper than any physical wound. As Marcus's words echoed in his mind, Andre felt a profound sense of isolation, as though he were the only one left fighting against an unseen enemy. Later that evening, as dusk settled over the city, Nora found herself walking the quiet streets, her mind a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Every shadow seemed to whisper secrets, every rustling leaf reminded her of past betrayals. She recalled the stranger's words from that morning, the promise of hidden truths. And now Simone's warning had only deepened her sense of unease. Who was Maria, and what role did she play in the intricate web of lies that was unfolding around her? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden phone call. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar number, and Nora's heart skipped a beat. With a deep breath, she answered. "Hello," she said cautiously. A voice on the other end spoke in a measured tone. "Miss Cross, I know you're trying to bury your past, but the time for secrets is over. Maria is coming for what you've hidden for so long." The words sent a jolt of fear through her. "Who is this?" she demanded, her voice shaking. The voice replied, "Someone who wants to see the truth set free. You must decide soon, or everything you've built will crumble." The line went dead, leaving Nora clutching the phone as if it were a lifeline and a ticking time bomb. Back at his hotel, Andre stared out of the window, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. The conversation with Marcus had unsettled him, and now the name Maria reverberated in his mind. He remembered fleeting images, a woman whose smile was as enigmatic as it was dangerous, whose influence seemed to extend into every corner of his past. The betrayal he had feared was now materializing before him, and he could no longer ignore the signs. In a moment of introspection, he recalled a time when he had trusted someone implicitly, only to have that trust shattered by lies and deceit. The memory was raw, almost unbearable, and it fueled a quiet determination to unearth the truth, no matter the cost. That night, in a dimly lit room filled with the soft glow of a single lamp, Andre began to piece together the fragments of his memories. He replayed old conversations, scrutinized past interactions, and searched for any indication that someone close had deceived him. As he scribbled notes in his notebook, a shocking revelation began to emerge. One of the names repeatedly mentioned in hushed tones during his previous days, a name he had once thought was insignificant, now stood out like a red mark on his history. It was Maria. The realization struck him with the force of a tidal wave. Maria had been more than just a background figure in his past. She had been an integral part of the network that once promised him loyalty, and now she might have been orchestrating his downfall. Determined to confront this betrayal, Andre reached out to an old contact, a mutual friend from his athletic days who had always been known for her no-nonsense approach to truth. In a quiet, secluded park, under the watchful eyes of ancient trees, he met with Lena. Her eyes were sharp, and her demeanor exuded a quiet strength. "Andre, you look troubled," Lena observed, offering him a seat on a weathered bench. "What's been going on?" Andre hesitated before speaking. "I've come across information that suggests someone named Maria has been working against me. I always thought she was just a minor player, but now I'm not so sure. I fear that the betrayal runs deeper than I ever imagined." Lena's face hardened. Maria was always elusive, always hidden behind layers of charm and deceit. "I've seen her manipulate people, turning friends into foes with nothing more than a few well-placed words. If she's involved, you need to be very careful." The weight of her words settled over him. "I don't know who to trust anymore," he admitted quietly. "Every conversation, every secretive glance, it all seems to point to her. And now, with these messages and warnings, I feel like I'm caught in a trap." Lena reached out, placing a steady hand on his arm. "Trust yourself, Andre. You've always had an instinct for truth. Follow that and don't let anyone, especially not Maria, control the narrative of your life." Andre nodded, determination slowly replacing the earlier shock. "I'm going to find her," he said, his voice resolute. "I need to know why she's doing this, and more importantly, how far this web of lies extends." Meanwhile, back at her apartment, Nora paced the small living room, the cryptic phone call replaying in her mind. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw fleeting images of a woman with an inscrutable smile, Maria. The thought was both alluring and terrifying. In moments of rare vulnerability, she wondered if confronting Maria could somehow bring closure to the tumult of her past. Yet, deep down, She feared what secrets might be uncovered. In a moment of resolve, Nora picked up her phone and dialed a number she had once avoided. "Lena," she asked when the call connected, her voice unsteady. "I need to see you. There's something I have to understand about Maria." Lena agreed to meet later that evening at a quiet diner on the edge of town, a neutral ground where old wounds could be discussed without the threat of prying eyes. As Nora hung up, she felt the weight of impending revelations press upon her. The choices before her were stark. Continue living in a state of controlled isolation or risk everything to face the truth. That evening, in the muted glow of the diner's neon lights, Nora and Lena sat across from each other in a secluded booth. Nora's eyes were red from lack of sleep and worry, while Lena's expression was one of quiet determination. The air between them was thick with unspoken questions. "Nora, what exactly are you hoping to find?" Lena asked softly, leaning in. Nora took a deep breath, struggling to steady her voice. "I think Maria holds the key to understanding everything. The betrayal, the messages, the fear that has haunted me for so long. I'm terrified of what I might learn, but I know that if I don't face it, I'll never be free." Lena nodded, her eyes reflecting a shared understanding of the pain that comes with confronting one's past. Sometimes the truth is the only way to break free from the web of lies. But be prepared, it may not be the closure you expect. The revelation might be more complicated than a simple betrayal. As their conversation continued, details began to emerge. Small, seemingly insignificant clues that pointed to a deeper, more insidious plan. Lena recalled overhearing a conversation in a quiet corner of a bustling event where whispers of Maria's influence had been mentioned in a tone that suggested danger. Nora listened intently, the pieces of her fragmented memories slowly aligning with Lena's recollections. In that moment, the first true betrayal revealed itself, not as an act of one person against another, but as a systemic manipulation of trust. Maria had not been an isolated figure of deceit. She was part of a network of individuals who thrived on secrets and half-truths. Her influence had spread like poison through the lives of those who believed they could trust, leaving behind a trail of shattered relationships and unspoken regrets. The revelation was a turning point for both Nora and Andre. Each, in their own way, realized that the web of lies was not confined to a single event or a single person. It was a labyrinthine construct built on the foundations of fear, ambition, and betrayal. For Nora, the discovery deepened the internal conflict that had long tormented her. For Andre, it solidified the determination to uncover every hidden truth, no matter how painful. As the night grew deeper, Nora left the diner with a heavy heart but a newfound resolve. The encounter with Lena had opened a door to a reality she had long feared. She now understood that the forces at work were powerful and far-reaching. Yet, amidst the rising tension and the specter of betrayal, there was also the glimmer of hope, a hope that by confronting these hidden motives, she might finally reclaim control over her life. In the early hours of the morning, as the city slept, both Nora and Andre found themselves. The web of lies had tightened around them, and every step forward felt like a march into the unknown. Their inner desires, to be free of the past, to find truth, and to rebuild trust, warred with their deepest fears, that the betrayal they were about to uncover would shatter their worlds forever. Andre's phone buzzed again with a new message, one that sent a chill down his spine. "The next move is yours. Trust no one." The message, succinct and ominous, confirmed his worst suspicions. It was as though the hand that had manipulated events was now daring him to act. With a heavy heart, he realized that every decision from this point on would be fraught with danger. At the same time, Nora's mind raced with images of Maria, a woman she had once barely noticed, but who now loomed as the embodiment of every secret and betrayal in her life. The tension in her chest grew as she contemplated the inevitable confrontation. In the silence of her apartment, she resolved to uncover the truth, even if it meant facing a betrayal that could upend everything she believed in. In a final moment of quiet determination, both Nora and Andre began to prepare for the next phase of their journey. For Andre, it meant reaching out to every contact who might have insight into Maria's network, piecing together the fragments of his past into a coherent narrative of deception. For Nora, it meant digging into old records, revisiting painful memories, and, most importantly, confronting the shadows of her own heart. Their paths, though separate, were converging inexorably toward a moment of reckoning, a moment when the full extent of the betrayal would be laid bare. The web of lies that had ensnared them was vast and intricate, but in its unraveling lay the promise of liberation. Each step they took was a step closer to either redemption or ruin. As dawn approached, the rising tension in their lives was palpable. The betrayal, once a vague and distant threat, had become a living, breathing presence that loomed over every decision. And in that fragile, early light, Nora and Andre both understood that the true test was only beginning. The choices they made in the coming days would not only determine the fate of their own lives, but would also expose the dark underbelly of a network built on deception, a network that, until now, had thrived in the shadows. With heavy hearts and steeled resolve, they stepped forward into the unknown, ready to confront the shocking revelations that awaited them. Every whispered secret, every half-truth, and every carefully concealed lie would soon be brought into the light. And as they moved deeper into the labyrinth of betrayal, they clung to one undeniable truth. Only by facing their deepest fears could they hope to break free from the web of lies that threatened to consume them. In that moment of quiet determination, as the first rays of sunlight pierced the darkness, both Nora and Andre silently vowed to see this through. The rising tension was no longer a vague sense of dread. It was a clarion call to action. And as the day began anew, so too did their resolve to uncover every hidden secret, no matter how painful the truth might be. Andre sat alone in the dim light of his hotel room, the muted hum of the city seeping through the window as he reread a series of messages on his phone. It was late, past midnight, and the only sound was the soft tapping of rain on the glass. He had been trying to piece together fragments of his past, desperately seeking answers about the tangled web that Maria had woven around him. But tonight, a single message, one he had long tried to forget, threatened to unravel everything he had built. Across town, Nora walked briskly under a street lamp, her mind still reeling from the warnings and whispered secrets that had haunted her since that fateful day. The encounter with Lena at the diner had left her with more questions than answers, and her heart was heavy with the burden of hidden truths. Lost in thought, she nearly missed the flicker of light from an open window above a quiet alley. Curiosity drew her upward, and as she peered in, she caught a glimpse of Andre's figure hunched over a table, his face illuminated by the glow of his phone screen. For a long, agonizing moment, Nora watched as Andre's eyes darted across the messages. Then, something in his expression shifted, a flash of guilt, a tremor of regret that he could not hide. Her heart pounded as she realized that this was more than just a secret conversation. It was a window into a part of his life he had kept hidden. Nora's pulse raced. She stepped back, conflicted by a need to understand and the rising dread of what she might find. The next morning, the tension between them was palpable. They met in a quiet corner of a local cafe, a neutral ground where whispers of betrayal and hidden truths were best confronted away from prying eyes. Nora's gaze was steady as she slid into the seat across from Andre. The earlier warmth that once bridged the distance between them had vanished, replaced by a cold seriousness that neither could ignore. "Andre," Nora began, her voice trembling with restrained emotion, "I need to ask you something. Last night, I saw you. I saw you reading messages from someone named Maria." Andre's eyes widened, and for a brief second, he seemed lost in the weight of his own silence. His fingers fidgeted with a coffee cup, the steam rising between them like a ghost of his past mistakes. Finally, he sighed, his voice low and hesitant. "Nora, I wasn't expecting you to see that." Her eyes searched his face, searching for any sign of the man she thought she knew. "What is it, Andre? Who is Maria to you?" And why have you been hiding her messages?" Andre hesitated, his gaze dropping to the table as if the answers might be etched into its grain. "Maria, she was once very close to me," he admitted softly. I made choices I'm not proud of, and she was part of that chapter. I never wanted to burden you with it." The confession struck Nora like a blow. For so long, she had fought to separate the pain of her past from the person she was building her future with. She had believed that the trust between them was strong enough to weather any storm. Now, that trust wavered on the edge of a knife. "What do you mean, close?" she pressed, her voice a mixture of hurt and disbelief. Andre's eyes glistened with unshed tears as he recounted the hidden truth. "Years ago, before I became who I am today, I was involved in a situation I thought I could control. I was young and desperate to prove myself, on and off the field. Maria was not just a friend. She was my partner in a scheme that, at the time, seemed like a way out. We made deals, we lied, and we betrayed people who trusted us. I thought I was doing what was necessary to survive, but I see now how wrong I was." Nora's breath caught in her throat. The image of the man she admired, the athlete who had inspired so many with his resilience, was now marred by a secret that could not be unseen. "You betrayed people," she whispered, the words heavy with accusation. "How could you keep something like this from me? I trusted you, André. I believed you were honest about everything that mattered." Andre reached out, his hand trembling as he tried to bridge the gap between them. "I never meant to hurt you, Nora. I buried that part of my life, hoping it would remain in the past. I was ashamed. Every time I saw your eyes, so full of hope and trust, I was reminded of my own failures. I wanted to protect you from that darkness." But Nora pulled back, her eyes hardening with hurt and disappointment. "Protect me? Or protect yourself?" she challenged, her voice rising with a mixture of anger and sorrow. "How can I trust a man who's kept such a vital part of his history hidden? How do I know you're not capable of doing it again?" Silence fell between them, heavy and suffocating. Outside, the rain began to fall again, echoing the turmoil that raged within Nora. She remembered the countless nights spent haunted by memories of her own betrayals, the ghosts of promises broken and trust shattered. And now, here was Andre, the one person she had leaned on, admitting that he too had a past filled with lies. Andre's expression was one of pained regret. "I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness," he said softly, his voice barely audible above the patter of rain against the window. "But I am trying to change. I'm trying to atone for what I did. I thought I had left it all behind, but seeing you now, I realize that I can't keep pretending it never happened." Nora's eyes filled with tears as she absorbed his words. The revelation had shifted everything between them. What had once been a bond built on mutual support and shared hope now felt fragile, as if it could shatter with the slightest pressure. "I need time, Andre," she said finally, her voice thick with emotion. "I need to process this. I need to understand why you never trusted me with your truth." Andre's gaze fell to his hands, clenched tightly in his lap. "I was afraid," he admitted, his tone choked with remorse. "Afraid that if I told you, you'd see me as less than the man you believe me to be. I was scared of losing you, of losing the only light I had in a dark past." Nora wiped her eyes, struggling to reconcile the man she had come to know with the hidden truth now laid bare before her. "But hiding it only made things worse," she whispered. "Every secret you keep carves a little more distance between us. I wanted to help you, Andre, but how can I do that if I don't know who you really are?" The air between them grew thick with unsaid words and unresolved pain. Outside, the rain intensified, a relentless rhythm that mirrored the pounding of their hearts. In that small, cluttered cafe, the world around them faded into insignificance as they grappled with the enormity of the revelation. The bond they had shared, built on silent promises and unspoken understandings, now trembled under the weight of betrayal. Andre reached out once more, his voice desperate and pleading. "Please, Nora, don't walk away from me. I know I made terrible mistakes, but I'm trying to be better. I want to face my past so I can build a future that's honest, with you by my side." Nora looked up, her eyes filled with pain and uncertainty. "I want to believe that, Andre," she said softly. "I really do. But how can I trust someone who has hidden so much from me? How do I know that the man you were back then isn't still a part of you?" For a long moment, neither spoke. The clamor of the cafe seemed to recede, leaving only the echo of their shared sorrow and the relentless patter of rain outside. Finally, Nora exhaled slowly, her voice trembling as she tried to find the words. "I need to know the whole truth, every detail, no matter how painful. If we're to move forward, there can be no more secrets." Andre's eyes glistened with both relief and anguish. "I promise you, Nora, I will tell you everything," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his heart. "I will share my past, no matter how ugly it is, so that you can see that I'm not that person anymore. I never meant to hurt you, and I'm so sorry for the pain I've caused." Yet even as he spoke, Nora felt a deep fissure forming between them, a rift forged by years of hidden truths and unspoken guilt. The man before her, who had once embodied hope and resilience, now seemed haunted by a past he could not escape. And though she longed to forgive him, a part of her recoiled at the thought of loving someone capable of such betrayal. As the hours passed, their conversation wove between confession and silence, each revelation deepening the chasm that separated them. Nora listened as Andre recounted the details of his involvement with Maria, a time when desperation had driven him to make choices that he now wished he could erase. He spoke of the deals made in shadowy rooms, of promises whispered in haste, and of the bitter consequences that had followed. With each word, the image of the man she had trusted became more complex, more troubled. "I wasn't always the hero you see," Andre confessed, his voice breaking with emotion. "I was young, foolish, and lost. I thought I was doing what was necessary to survive, to prove my worth. But in the end, my actions hurt so many people, and I hurt you by keeping it all hidden." Nora's heart ached with a mixture of empathy and betrayal. She wanted to understand, to believe that the man who stood before her was capable of change. But the weight of his confession pressed down on her, a constant reminder that trust, once broken, is not easily mended. "I appreciate your honesty now," she murmured, "but it doesn't erase the pain. I'm trying to understand, but I can't help feeling that I was left in the dark when I needed you the most." Andre reached across the table, his hand hovering in the space between them as if seeking permission to bridge the divide. "I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness," he said quietly, "but I need you to know that I am working every day to atone for my mistakes. I want to be someone you can rely on, someone who values your trust more than anything." The sincerity in his voice stirred something in Nora, a flicker of hope amid the ruins of betrayal. Yet, as much as she yearned to believe in his transformation, the hidden truths of the past loomed large, casting long shadows over their future. "Andre," she whispered, "if we're to move forward, I need complete transparency. No more secrets, no more hidden parts of your life. I need to know that I'm not going to be blindsided by something else in the future." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I promise, Nora. I'll tell you everything, no matter how painful or ugly it might be." His eyes searched hers, pleading for understanding even as he braced for the cost of his honesty. But even as they made these tentative promises, a new tension began to stir, a tension that hinted at further betrayals yet to be uncovered. As the conversation drew to a close, both Nora and Andre sat in a silence heavy with unresolved emotion. The trust between them had been fractured, and while the truth had been set free for a moment, its consequences were only beginning to unfold. Later that night, as Nora walked home under the same rain that had marked their earlier confrontation, she found herself questioning everything she had believed about love, loyalty, and redemption. The revelation about Andre's hidden past with Maria was a wound that might never fully heal. And though part of her longed to accept his plea for forgiveness, another part of her recoiled at the thought of loving someone whose past was so steeped in deception. In the days that followed, the rift between them grew wider. Their meetings became shorter, conversations more strained. Each time Andre tried to reach out, Nora pulled away, her eyes guarded against further hurt. And every time they crossed paths, whether in the quiet corridors of their daily lives or in the hushed moments of shared solitude, the unspoken truth hung between them like a specter, a constant reminder of the betrayal that had changed everything. Andre, for his part, was tormented by regret. He spent long hours replaying their conversation, wishing he could undo the damage his secrets had wrought. He knew that the road to redemption was long and uncertain, and that earning back Nora's trust would require more than words. It would demand actions, sacrifices, and an unyielding commitment to truth. But with every attempt to bridge the gap, he found himself met with the cold reality of a trust that had been shattered. One rainy afternoon, as Andre walked along a deserted street, he paused outside a small bookstore. The window display caught his eye, a simple arrangement of old books and handwritten letters that spoke of lost time and forgotten promises. In that quiet moment, he resolved to confront his past head-on. He would seek out those he had wronged. He would tell his story to anyone who would listen, and he would do everything in his power to atone for the betrayal that had defined so much of his life. But even as he made this vow to himself, he knew that the damage done to his relationship with Nora might be irreparable. Trust, once broken, is a fragile thing, and he feared that the gap between them might only widen with each step he took toward redemption. Back at her apartment, Nora sat by the window, watching the rain wash away the traces of the day. Her mind replayed every word from their confrontation, every tear shed in silent accusation. She wondered if the man she loved was truly capable of change, or if the darkness of his past would always cast a long shadow over their future. The pain of his hidden truth was not just a betrayal of her trust. It was a betrayal of the hope she had nurtured for both of them. In the solitude of that rainy night, Nora made a choice. She needed time, not just to heal, but to understand whether the man before her was the same one she had come to care for, or if his past would forever be a barrier between them. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with the echoes of secrets and the scars of betrayal. And though a part of her longed to forgive, another part of her knew that some wounds might never fully mend. As the days turned into weeks, the tension between Nora and Andre remained a silent undercurrent in their interactions. They continued to live their separate lives, meeting occasionally in the fleeting moments when fate brought them together. Each encounter was a reminder of the fragile trust they once shared, a trust now marred by the hidden truth that had come to light. And with every meeting, the rift between them deepened, a constant challenge to the possibility of rebuilding what had been lost. In that time of separation and introspection, both Nora and Andre were forced to confront their own demons. Nora delved into her memories, questioning every decision and every secret she had kept hidden in an effort to protect herself from further pain. Andre, meanwhile, sought forgiveness not only from those he had hurt, but from himself. The burden of his past was heavy, and he carried it like an anchor that threatened to drag him down into an abyss of regret. Their lives, once intertwined by shared hopes and dreams, now moved in parallel paths marked by sorrow, uncertainty, and the lingering possibility of redemption. And as the rain continued to fall outside their windows, the truth of that fateful revelation remained etched in their hearts, a constant reminder that sometimes the cost of truth is far higher than anyone is ever prepared to pay. In the quiet aftermath of their confrontation, as both struggled to find meaning in the ruins of their shared past, one undeniable truth emerged. The hidden truth about Andre's past with Maria had changed everything. It had shifted the very foundation of their relationship, leaving behind a rift that neither time nor remorse could easily bridge. And as the days wore on, the question loomed large over both of them. Could they ever find a way to mend a trust so deeply broken, or would the shadows of the past continue to drive them apart? For now, the only certainty was that nothing would ever be the same again. The twist of that long-hidden secret had altered their course irreversibly, setting them on paths defined by the scars of betrayal and the difficult, uncertain journey toward forgiveness. And in the echo of every raindrop that fell on the silent streets, the memory of that betrayal whispered a reminder. Some truths, once uncovered, change us forever. Nora awoke before dawn, her mind a swirling storm of doubts and fears. The nights had grown longer since the revelations about Andre's past, and now a new threat seemed to be gathering on the horizon. Every step she took fell heavier, as if the secrets of her life were weighing her down. In the soft pre-dawn darkness, she sat at the small kitchen table with a mug of lukewarm tea, trying to steady her thoughts. The unanswered questions about Maria and the mysterious messages had turned her once quiet life into a relentless chase after truth, a truth that seemed to slip further away with each passing moment. She recalled the dark-suited man's visit at the cafe, the urgent warning that had rattled her already fragile sense of security. His words echoed in her mind like a distant drumbeat, that Maria's influence was more far-reaching than either she or Andre had imagined. Now, mounting challenges were forcing her to confront not only the memories of betrayal, but also a present that threatened to overwhelm her. And as she prepared to step into the new day, she couldn't shake the feeling that the path ahead was lined with unseen adversaries waiting to pounce. Outside, the city was slowly coming to life under a slate-gray sky. Nora walked briskly through the rain-soaked streets, her eyes darting from shadow to shadow as if searching for hidden threats. Every stranger's glance, every whispered conversation along the sidewalk, felt loaded with meaning. It was as though the entire world had turned into a stage for deception and betrayal. In the back of her mind, she kept recalling the promise she had made to herself, to uncover the full truth, no matter how painful it might be. At a small public library near the city center, Nora had arranged to meet an old friend, Ravi, who had once been a trusted ally in her quest for answers. Ravi was known for his encyclopedic knowledge of obscure records and historical archives. She hoped that by reviewing old documents and files, she could finally piece together the puzzle that connected her past to the present. As she entered the cool, quiet building, the hushed murmur of voices and the soft rustle of pages provided a temporary reprieve from the turmoil raging in her heart. Ravi greeted her with a warm, tentative smile. "Nora, it's been too long," he said softly. "I heard you needed help with some research." His eyes held genuine concern as he led her to a secluded corner of the library, where dusty shelves overflowed with forgotten records. They spent hours poring over yellowed papers and faded photographs. Every document hinted at fragments of a story that had been carefully hidden from the public eye. Stories of partnerships formed in secrecy, of deals made in dimly lit rooms, and of names that reappeared like specters in the margins of forgotten files. Nora's heart pounded as she uncovered references to a woman named Maria Henderson, whose influence stretched far beyond what she had ever imagined. In one particularly revealing file, she found mention of a covert organization that operated under the guise of charity and community outreach, a network that Maria was rumored to control. The more Nora learned, the more she realized that her own life was intricately entangled with forces that were both powerful and dangerous. As the afternoon turned to dusk, Ravi closed the heavy ledger with a sigh. "Nora, I'm sorry," he said quietly, "but it seems that you're not the only one who has been caught in this web. There are whispers that this organization has infiltrated many circles, business, politics, even sports. And there are those who have betrayed their own in order to serve its interests." His voice trembled with a mixture of anger and despair, and Nora felt a chill that was not due to the cold air. Her mind flashed back to Andre's confession, the shame and regret in his eyes when he admitted his involvement with Maria. But now a new layer of betrayal was emerging, one that implicated more than just a single relationship. It appeared that Maria's network had a much broader reach, and that someone Nora had once trusted might be working with these adversaries. Ravi hesitated before speaking the final, devastating piece of evidence. "There's a name that keeps appearing in these records, Nora. It's someone you'd never expect, someone you considered your friend." Nora's breath caught in her throat. For weeks, she had confided in Lena, the one person who had always been by her side. Lena's calm wisdom and quiet support had been her anchor during the storm of revelations. Now, the files suggested that Lena might have been more involved in this clandestine network than she had ever let on. The thought was like a knife twisting in her chest. Unable to bear the weight of uncertainty, Nora left the library with the heavy ledger clutched tightly in her arms. The rain had turned into a steady downpour, and the city's neon lights blurred into indistinct shapes on the wet pavement. Every step she took was punctuated by a sense of urgency and betrayal. She had always believed that Lena was her true friend, a guiding light in the darkness of her past. But if Lena had hidden ties to Maria's organization, then everything Nora had built on trust was crumbling before her eyes. That night, back in her modest apartment, Nora sat alone in the dim glow of a single lamp. The ledger lay open on her desk, its pages filled with damning evidence and the echo of long-forgotten secrets. She felt as if she were standing on the edge of an abyss, her mind teetering between disbelief and sorrow. With trembling fingers, she dialed Lena's number, desperate for answers. Lena answered after a few rings, her voice cautious yet familiar. "Nora, what's wrong?" she asked. "I need to see you, Lena," Nora said, her voice tight with emotion. "There's something I found. Something about you, about your connection to Maria. I can't believe it, but I need the truth." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, followed by a quiet sigh. "I'm sorry, Nora. I'll be there soon," Lena replied, her tone heavy with regret. The line went silent, leaving Nora with a profound sense of dread. Was this the second betrayal that would shatter her world completely? Hours later, Lena arrived at Nora's apartment. The tension in the air was palpable, thick with unsaid words and mutual hurt. They sat facing each other in the quiet living room, the only sound the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant patter of rain. "Nora," Lena began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I never wanted you to find out this way. There are things about my past, things I've kept hidden for your protection." Nora's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Protect me," she echoed bitterly. "Or protect yourself. How could you lie to me, Lena? I trusted you with my deepest fears, my darkest secrets. And now I find out you were part of this network all along." Lena looked down, her face etched with sorrow. "I didn't know how to tell you. I got involved with them long before you even knew about Maria. It was supposed to be temporary, something to help me out of a desperate situation. I never imagined it would grow into something so controlling." Nora's voice wavered as she struggled to comprehend the betrayal. "But why? Why keep it from me? I needed you, Lena. I needed the truth to know who I could trust." Her words were laced with a mix of anger and deep hurt. Tears welled up in Lena's eyes. "I'm so sorry, Nora. Every day, I live with the shame of it. I thought I could keep my two worlds separate, my friendship with you and the secret I was forced to bear. I thought that by keeping it hidden, I could protect you from the danger that comes with knowing too much." The revelation cut Nora to the core. The pain of Lena's betrayal was compounded by the sense that everything she had held dear was a lie. "You were part of it, Lena. You worked with them, and all the while, you let me believe that you were just my friend. I feel like my entire life is a lie." The room fell silent, the only sound the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. For a long moment, neither spoke. Outside, the storm raged on, echoing the tumult in their hearts. Finally, Lena spoke again, her voice choked with emotion. "I understand if you never want to see me again, but please believe me when I say that I never intended to hurt you. I was trapped, and I made choices I regret every day." Nora turned away, struggling with a mix of anger and sorrow. "I need time, Lena. I need to figure out what this means for me, for all of us. Right now, I can't even look at you without feeling betrayed." With that, she rose and left the room, leaving Lena sitting in the gloom, a single tear rolling down her cheek. Over the following days, Nora's world seemed to unravel further. The mounting challenges and unexpected adversaries were no longer distant threats. They were here, tangled in every relationship she had once trusted. The betrayal by Lena was a sharp wound that deepened the sense of isolation and confusion she felt. And as she struggled to come to terms with the double betrayal, the secrets of Andre, and now the hidden past of her closest friend, Nora realized that the enemy was not just one person, but an entire network built on deception and betrayal. Desperate for clarity, Nora reached out to Ravi again, hoping that the evidence in the ledger could provide some guidance. Ravi looked over the documents with a grim expression. "Nora, this is bigger than any of us imagined. Maria's network is vast, and it's connected to people in positions of power. Lena's involvement might have been small in comparison, but it shows how deep the corruption runs." His words only added to Nora's growing sense of despair. She felt as though she were fighting an invisible enemy, one that had infiltrated every aspect of her life. In the meantime, Andre struggled with his own mounting challenges. The shock of Lena's betrayal had left him reeling, and the pressure to redeem himself was greater than ever. He threw himself into his work and his quest for truth, meeting with contacts and investigating every lead related to Maria's organization. Yet every step he took seemed to lead him deeper into a labyrinth of deceit. He received anonymous warnings and threatening messages, urging him to stop digging into the past. The constant sense of being watched, of being hunted by unseen adversaries, left him on edge. One evening, as Andre sat alone in his modest study, he received a cryptic envelope. With trembling hands, he opened it to find a single sheet of paper with a chilling message. "The truth is closer than you think. Trust is a luxury you can no longer afford." The message sent a shiver down his spine. It was clear that his journey for redemption was about to take a dangerous turn, one that might force him to confront not only his own past, but also the dark forces that lurked in the shadows. As the days passed, both Nora and Andre found themselves at a crossroads. Their paths, once intertwined by shared hope and the promise of healing, now diverged under the weight of betrayal and mounting challenges. Nora's heart ached with the loss of trust in those she had once held dear, and the realization that her journey toward the truth was fraught with unexpected adversaries left her feeling isolated and vulnerable. Andre, too, felt the burden of secrets and the relentless pressure of a past that refused to remain buried. In a quiet moment one late afternoon, Nora stood on her apartment balcony, staring out at the rain-washed city. The weight of betrayal and the mounting challenges pressed down on her like an iron shroud. She knew that the second betrayal, Lena's hidden ties, was only the beginning. The web of lies was tightening around her, and she had to decide whether to fight back or to retreat into the safety of ignorance. With determination slowly rekindling in her eyes, she resolved that she would no longer be a passive victim. The truth, however painful, must be revealed. She would confront her adversaries, expose the network of corruption, and reclaim her life from the shadows. At the same time, Andre convened with a small group of trusted contacts in a nondescript meeting room far from prying eyes. They spoke in hushed tones about the growing evidence against Maria's organization and the dangerous individuals who had been implicated in the conspiracy. The atmosphere was tense, charged with both fear and resolve. One contact, a former insider with a shaky voice and haunted eyes, revealed that there was even more betrayal lurking beneath the surface, that someone high up in their own circle had been feeding information to the enemy. This twist struck Andre like a blow, deepening the wounds of trust that had already begun to fester. He realized that the mounting challenges were not external alone. The people he had considered allies might have been complicit in the deception all along. The discovery of this second betrayal left Andre reeling. He felt betrayed not only by the ghost of his past with Maria, but also by the treachery within his present. With a heavy heart, he vowed to root out every mole, every traitor hidden in the midst of his circle. The stakes were higher than ever. His own future, the safety of those he cared about, and the integrity of the truth itself depended on his next moves. That night, as the city lay shrouded in darkness, both Nora and Andre prepared for the next phase of their arduous journey. Nora sat at her desk, meticulously organizing the evidence she had gathered. Each document, Each photograph and each faded note was a piece of the puzzle that would expose the network of lies and betrayals. Her resolve hardened with every passing minute, even as the pain of lost trust lingered in her heart. She knew that the journey ahead would be perilous, but she also knew that she could not turn back. The unraveling had begun, and there was no escaping the truth. Andre, too, spent the night in restless contemplation, his mind racing with plans and contingencies. The second betrayal had shattered his illusions of loyalty, and now every decision carried the weight of potential ruin. Yet, amid the turmoil, he found a flicker of hope, a determination to fight for redemption and to expose the corruption that had poisoned his world. He made a silent vow to himself that he would bring the hidden adversaries into the light, no matter the cost. As dawn broke over the rain-soaked city, Nora and Andre each stepped into the uncertain light of a new day, their hearts heavy with loss, but fortified by the resolve to fight on. The mounting challenges and unexpected adversaries had pushed them to the brink, but they refused to be defeated. In the labyrinth of deception that now enveloped them, the truth was the only weapon they had, and they were prepared to use it. In the weeks that followed, the intensity of conflicts escalated. Nora found herself pursued by anonymous threats and shadowy figures whose motives were as murky as the secrets they guarded. Every encounter left her more determined to uncover the truth, even as the second betrayal by Lena left an indelible mark on her soul. And Andre, navigating the treacherous maze of corrupted alliances, began to see that every step toward redemption also led him deeper into danger. Yet, amid the mounting challenges and the relentless adversaries, there remained a fragile hope that together they could dismantle the network of lies and betrayal that had torn their lives apart. Their journey, now more perilous than ever, was a testament to the strength of the human spirit, a fight for truth in a world where every trust had been shattered. And so, as the storm of deception continued to rage around them, Nora and Andre stood on the precipice of a new chapter. Their hearts, scarred by betrayal but ignited by determination, propelled them forward into a future where the truth, however painful, would set them free. The unraveling had only just begun, and with every new challenge, they grew stronger, ready to face the darkness and expose the hidden enemies that threatened to consume them. In that promise of a new day, amid the ruins of shattered trust and mounting adversaries, they both silently vowed that no matter how deep the deception ran, they would fight for the truth. And in that fight, even the bitterest betrayals would eventually yield to the light of redemption. Nora's heart pounded like a drum as she stepped into the abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The chill in the air was nearly tangible, and beams of moonlight pierced through the broken windows, scattering across the dusty floor. Tonight, every secret, every betrayal, every lie would be laid bare. She clutched a small envelope in her trembling hand, a final piece of evidence she had gathered over weeks of painful searching. In that envelope were documents linking Maria's network to high-level corruption, as well as a recording that could expose the truth behind Lena's hidden ties. Andre had arrived moments before her. He stood near a rusted metal staircase, his broad shoulders tense as he scanned the dim interior. His eyes, usually so calm and focused, were now full of uncertainty and determination. They had agreed to meet here after receiving a cryptic message promising that the truth could be revealed only in this very place. The stakes were higher than ever. Not only was their personal trust at risk, but the fate of many lives depended on the exposure of the dark network that had haunted them for so long. As Nora approached, Andre stepped forward and reached out, his voice soft yet firm. "Nora, we're here together now. No matter what happens tonight, I want you to know that I'm with you." His words, though simple, carried the weight of 1,000 apologies and a desperate hope for redemption. She nodded, fighting back tears as she recalled all that had led her to this moment. The warnings, the mounting betrayals, Lena's tearful confession, and the endless nights of research that had revealed how deep the web of lies truly ran. "I'm ready," she whispered, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. They moved deeper into the warehouse, their footsteps echoing in the vast, empty space. A faint light emanated from a far corner, where a circle of chairs had been arranged. Waiting there were Lena and the dark-suited man, along with two other shadowy figures whose faces were obscured by hoods. The atmosphere was electric with tension and unspoken fears. Lena's eyes met Nora's with a mixture of sorrow and resolve. "I'm so sorry, Nora. I never meant for any of this to happen," she said, her voice breaking with remorse. Nora's heart clenched at the sight, but she forced herself to remain composed. This was not the time for gentle apologies. Tonight, everything had to come out. Before Lena could say more, the dark-suited man stepped forward, his gaze steady and commanding. "Enough of apologies," he said in a measured tone. "We are here to face the truth, however painful it may be. For too long, Maria's network has thrived in the shadows, using deception to control lives and institutions. Tonight, we end that cycle." A murmur of agreement passed through the group. One of the hooded figures, his voice low and gravelly, added, "The evidence we have collected tonight will bring down those responsible. It is time for the lies to be exposed." Andre's eyes burned with a mixture of anger and regret. "So, what exactly do you expect from us?" he demanded. "We've been pawns in this game for so long. Why should we believe that any of this will bring justice?" The dark-suited man regarded him for a long moment before replying, "Justice is not given, it is taken. We have gathered proof that connects influential people to crimes of betrayal, corruption, and even violence. But the truth requires sacrifice. You, Andre, and you, Nora, have a choice to make: to step forward and risk everything, or to let the darkness continue to consume lives." Nora stepped forward, her voice trembling with emotion yet laced with determination. "I have spent so long searching for answers," she said. "I have lost friends, trust, and nearly my own hope. But I cannot allow this network to continue its reign of deception. I want the world to know the truth about Maria, about Lena, about every single lie that has held us captive." A heavy silence fell over the room. Lena's eyes filled with tears as she looked between Nora and Andre. "I was trapped," she said softly, "and I made choices that I regret every day. I tried to protect you, Nora, but I ended up betraying your trust. I am ready to do whatever it takes to make this right." Andre's voice was barely audible as he spoke, laden with both pain and determination. "I, too, have secrets that have haunted me. My past with Maria was a dark chapter, one tried so hard to close. But tonight I stand before you all, ready to expose that chapter for what it is, a betrayal that has hurt so many." The dark-suited man nodded approvingly. "The evidence is here," he announced, motioning toward a table laden with documents, photographs, and digital devices. "Every piece of this will confirm the extent of the deception. I will play the recording, and then we will open the documents for all to see." The room dimmed further as the dark-suited man connected a small portable projector to a laptop. On a blank wall, images began to flash. Grainy surveillance videos of clandestine meetings, transcripts of covert conversations, and scanned letters that detailed illegal transactions. The recordings revealed a network of influential figures, politicians, business leaders, and even respected community figures, all working in collusion with Maria's organization. Nora's breath caught as she saw her own name appear among the documents that suggested she had unknowingly been involved in some of the network's early schemes. The truth was far more complex than she had ever imagined. She had been a victim, but also a reluctant participant in a larger system of control. Tears welled in her eyes, not just from betrayal, but from the crushing weight of realization. Andre's hand tightened into a fist as he watched the evidence of his own complicity. The recording revealed meetings he had attended, the promises he had made in moments of desperation. He could not erase his past, but he could now face it head-on for the sake of redemption. "I was wrong," he murmured, his voice trembling. "I allowed myself to be used, and in doing so I hurt the ones I loved." The dark-suited man continued, "This is not just about individual mistakes. It is about a system built on lies, where trust is manipulated and betrayal is the currency of power. We have a chance to break that cycle tonight, but it will not be easy. The people behind this network will not go down without a fight. At that moment, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the warehouse. A group of armed men in dark clothing burst through one of the side doors, their eyes cold and determined. The sudden intrusion sent shockwaves through the room. The hooded figures exchanged alarmed looks, and the dark-suited man's expression hardened. "They are here," he stated calmly, "to silence us." In an instant, chaos erupted. The armed men advanced, their weapons drawn, and a tense standoff ensued. Andre instinctively stepped in front of Nora, his protective instincts taking over. "Stay behind me," he ordered, his voice rising with authority. Nora, trembling yet resolute, clutched the envelope tightly and refused to step back. One of the armed men barked an order. "Drop the evidence now, and you will not be harmed." The tension in the air was palpable as the room braced for the coming conflict. The dark-suited man's eyes flickered with determination. "We will not let fear silence the truth," he declared. A fierce confrontation broke out as the two sides clashed. In the ensuing struggle, shouts and the sound of scuffling filled the air. The evidence, the documents and recordings, became the focal point of the battle. Andre fought with a desperate energy, his anger fueling every movement as he aimed to protect Nora and secure the truth. Nora, though frightened, found strength she did not know she possessed. She dashed toward the table, determined to preserve the evidence at all costs. Amid the turmoil, Lena stepped forward, her eyes filled with regret and determination. "I will not let you take everything from us," she cried, rushing toward one of the armed men. Her actions, though risky, bought crucial seconds for Nora and Andre. The sound of struggle, the clanging of metal, and the shouts of both sides blended into a chaotic symphony, a climax that had been building for far too long. The dark-suited man seized the moment to speak, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Listen to me. The truth must prevail." His command rang out, and for a brief moment, the fighting paused as both sides hesitated. In that silence, every person in the room felt the weight of all the secrets and betrayals that had brought them to this juncture. Andre took a deep breath, stepping forward with his voice steady and clear. "We stand here not as criminals, but as victims of a corrupt system. We have been manipulated, betrayed, and forced into a fight for our own redemption. Tonight, we demand that you let the truth be known." His words resonated in the silence that followed, a challenge to the forces that had long thrived in the dark. One of the armed men, his resolve wavering, lowered his weapon slightly. The leader of the group, however, was not swayed. "You leave us no choice," he snarled, advancing again. But at that very moment, sirens began to wail in the distance. Reinforcements, police forces who had been alerted by a silent alarm, arrived on the scene, their flashing lights piercing the night. The armed men exchanged panicked glances. In the ensuing confusion, several of them dropped their weapons, and the rest began to retreat. The police moved in quickly, securing the area and apprehending those who remained. As order slowly returned to the chaotic warehouse, the dark-suited man gathered the remaining evidence and secured the documents for transfer to the authorities. Breathing heavily, Andre and Nora stood side by side, their hearts still racing from the intensity of the confrontation. Nora's eyes met Andre's, and in that moment, all the pain, the betrayals, and the desperate fight for truth converged into a single, clear understanding. They had faced the climax of their journey, and those scars would remain. The truth had finally been set free. The dark-suited man addressed the group in a calm, resolute tone. "Tonight, we have shown that the truth cannot be hidden forever. Though many of us have suffered and been betrayed, this is the first step toward dismantling the network of lies that has oppressed us for so long. Let this be a moment of catharsis, a turning point where we choose to stand up against corruption and deception." Lena, standing quietly at the edge of the circle, lowered her gaze. "I have hurt you, Nora, and I know my betrayal has caused irreparable damage," she said softly. "But I promise you, I will do everything I can to help make this right." Her words were tentative, but they carried the sincerity of a broken, soul-seeking redemption. Nora, though still reeling from the emotional impact, found a measure of forgiveness in her heart. "We have all made mistakes," she said, her voice trembling yet resolute. "Tonight has shown us that even in our darkest moments, we can choose to fight for the truth. I don't know if we can ever erase the past, but we can build a future where honesty and trust guide us." Andre stepped forward and placed a hand on Nora's shoulder. "We have a long road ahead," he said, "but together we can overcome these betrayals. We must hold on to the hope that the truth will bring justice, not just for us, but for everyone who has suffered under this system." As the police took control of the scene and the armed men were led away, the warehouse slowly emptied of its dark energy. The flashing lights of the patrol cars illuminated the faces of those who had gathered, now united in their resolve to seek justice and healing. The documents and recordings, once symbols of a painful past, were now beacons of hope for a future free from manipulation and deceit. In the aftermath of the confrontation, as dawn broke over the rain-washed city, Nora, Andre, and Lena gathered outside the warehouse. The cool morning air carried a promise of renewal. Though their hearts were heavy with the scars of betrayal, there was also a shared determination, a commitment to rebuild what had been broken and to ensure that the truth, however painful, would lead them toward redemption. Nora looked up at the pale sky, her voice soft but steady. "I have learned that the path to truth is never easy. It is littered with obstacles, pain, and betrayal, but it is the only way to break free from the chains of our past." Her eyes glistened with tears that spoke of sorrow and hope in equal measure. Andre squeezed her hand gently. "We have faced our demons tonight, and though the journey has not been without cost, we have taken the first step toward healing. The truth may have hurt us, but it will also set us free." Lena, her eyes filled with remorse and determination, added, "I will spend the rest of my life trying to make amends for the pain I caused. I cannot change the past, but I promise to help build a future where trust is earned and honesty is valued above all else." As the sun rose higher, casting its warm light on the trio, a quiet sense of catharsis settled over them. The climactic confrontation had been fierce and tumultuous, but it had also been a turning point, a moment when every hidden truth was exposed and every painful secret was acknowledged. The journey toward redemption was only just beginning, but in that moment, Nora, Andre, and Lena knew they had chosen to confront the darkness rather than be swallowed by it. In the days and weeks that followed, their story would become a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit. The evidence they had gathered led to a series of investigations that eventually brought down the corrupt network that had long operated in the shadows. Those scars remained, both visible and hidden. Their courage in the face of betrayal paved the way for a future where honesty could flourish. Standing together on that crisp morning, the three understood that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. Yet, the catharsis of tonight's events had ignited a spark of hope that would guide them through the darkest days. The unraveling of the web of lies had been painful, but it had also been the catalyst for transformation, a transformation that promised a life defined not by past betrayals, but by the strength to rise above them. And so, as the city awoke to a new day, Nora, Andre, and Lena stepped forward into the uncertain light, their hearts beating in unison with the promise of redemption. The climax had come and passed, but its lessons would remain, a constant reminder that while the truth might be a double-edged sword, it was also the key to a future free from the shadows of deceit. In that moment of reflection, with every ray of sunlight dispelling the lingering darkness, they made a silent vow that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would always choose truth over lies, love over betrayal, and hope over despair. Nora sat by the window in her small apartment as the early morning light began to push back the remnants of a long, painful night. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the city glistening with fresh promise. Outside, the streets were quiet, and a soft, cool breeze stirred the curtains. Inside, the silence was heavy with reflection, a silence filled with the echoes of all the betrayals, the shattered trust, and the long, winding journey toward truth. For weeks now, Nora, Andre, and Lena had been caught in the relentless grip of a network of deception, a web spun by Maria's organization that had ensnared them in a battle for redemption. The violent confrontation at the warehouse, the desperate struggle to protect evidence, and the climactic showdown with armed adversaries had finally forced the darkness into the open. Now, in the gentle stillness of dawn, the central conflict was over. The corrupt network had been exposed, and the police had taken away the remnants of that treacherous power. Yet, as Nora looked back on all that had transpired, she knew that the real battle lay not in the physical realm, but in the quiet reconciliation of heart and mind. Andre joined her at the window shortly after. His face, marked by fatigue and sorrow, softened as he gazed out at the awakening city. He rested his hand on the windowsill, his eyes reflecting a complex mix of regret and cautious hope. "I never thought we'd come to this," he murmured, his voice low and earnest. "For a long time, I carried the weight of my past with Maria as if it were an anchor, dragging me down. But tonight we showed that we can fight back." Nora nodded slowly. "It wasn't just about fighting the enemy," she replied, her tone trembling with the memory of every painful revelation. "It was about confronting the parts of ourselves we've been too afraid to face. I've spent so long running from my own secrets, my own betrayals. Now I realize that only by acknowledging them can I hope to be free." Lena, who had come quietly to join them, stood a few paces behind, her eyes downcast. The weight of her own betrayal, of the secrets she'd kept, of the role she had played in the network, had carved deep lines of remorse into her face. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely audible. "I never wanted to hurt you, Nora. I was trapped in a situation I couldn't control, and I thought that by keeping it hidden, I could protect you. But I see now that my silence only added to your pain." Nora turned to face Lena, her eyes softening despite the lingering sting of betrayal. "Lena, I loved you like a sister. I trusted you with everything. It hurts to know that you were involved, even in a small way. But I also know that people make mistakes when they're caught in impossible circumstances. I need you to understand that this isn't just about blaming you. It's about accepting that we all have shadows in our past." Her voice steadied with a quiet resolve. "I forgive you, Lena, though I know the wounds will take time to heal." Andre placed a comforting hand on Lena's shoulder. "We all have demons we're fighting," he said gently. "The past isn't something we can change, but it can guide us. Tonight we prove that facing the truth, even when it's painful, sets the stage for a future where we aren't defined by our mistakes." As the three sat in companionable silence, the early sun climbed higher, casting soft beams of light into the room. The remnants of the warehouse confrontation, the chaotic moments of violence, and the rush of adrenaline now felt like distant memories, necessary battles fought for the sake of a greater cause. But the true victory, they realized, was internal. It was found in the willingness to look at oneself honestly and to accept that while the past could never be erased, it did not have to dictate the future. Nora reached for a worn leather journal that had accompanied her through the darkest nights of her quest. Over the past weeks, the pages had filled with her thoughts, her fears, and her tentative steps toward understanding. She opened it to a blank page and began to write, her hand moving steadily as she poured out her reflections. "Today," she wrote, "I choose to believe that truth, no matter how painful, is the only path to healing. I choose to confront the legacy of betrayal that has haunted me, and I choose to reclaim my life from the shadows of the past." Each word was imbued with a newfound strength, a promise to herself that she would no longer let fear and deception rule her days. Andre, too, found solace in reflection. Sitting at his desk, he carefully reviewed old letters, photographs, and documents that chronicled his involvement with Maria's network. The evidence was irrefutable. He had been complicit in deals he now deeply regretted, and he had allowed himself to be manipulated by forces that cared little for the truth. "I have been a pawn in a game much larger than I ever imagined," he admitted silently as he folded a yellowed letter and placed it in a box marked Past. "But today, I set aside the shame and the guilt. Today, I take responsibility for my actions, and I vow to rebuild trust, not just with others, but with myself." The morning unfolded slowly, each moment a gentle reminder of the fragility of life and the resilience of the human spirit. Outside, neighbors began to emerge, greeting the day with quiet smiles and shared glances that spoke of community and renewal. In the soft light of a new day, Nora, Andre, and Lena stepped out into the street, their hearts heavy with memory, yet buoyed by the promise of redemption. As they walked together, the conversation turned toward the lessons learned from their tumultuous journey. "I think the hardest part was realizing that truth isn't a single moment," Nora said thoughtfully. "It's a series of decisions, each one building on the last, until you finally see the whole picture. And sometimes, the picture is more complicated than you ever imagined." Andre nodded, his expression pensive. "I used to believe that honesty meant revealing everything at once, that a single confession could make everything right. But I see now that true honesty is gradual. It's in the small acts of courage, admitting our faults, apologizing sincerely, and then working every day to be better. It's in understanding that forgiveness is a process, not a destination." Lena's eyes filled with tears as she listened to their words. "I'm so sorry for the part one played in this tragedy," she said softly. "I've learned that silence can be as harmful as a lie, and that by hiding the truth, I only allowed more darkness to grow. I promise to honor this second chance by living openly and truthfully, even when it's hard." Their conversation drifted into a reflective quiet as they passed a small park, where a few early risers were already greeting the day with gentle exercise and warm conversation. In that moment, the three friends found themselves at a crossroads, a point where the past and future converged. They realized that every betrayal, every hurt, and every mistake was part of the tapestry of their lives. And while those threads could never be removed, they could be rewoven into something new, a design that honored both the pain and the beauty of their shared human experience. Nora stopped to sit on a park bench, inviting Andre and Lena to join her. The bench overlooked a small pond, its surface mirror smooth in the early light. "Look at that," she said softly, gesturing toward the water. "The pond reflects everything perfectly, even the broken branches of the willow tree that lean over it. It reminds me that our lives are reflections of both the light and the darkness we carry inside." Andre smiled faintly. "We all have shadows, Nora. It's what we do with them that counts. I choose to believe that by acknowledging our flaws, we can also embrace our capacity for change. I choose to see my past not as a chain that binds me, but as a lesson that propels me forward." Lena reached out and took Nora's hand. "And I choose to make amends, to live in a way that honors the truth, no matter how difficult it is. I may have caused pain, but I believe that even in our darkest moments, there is a spark of light that can guide us home." They sat in silence for a long while, each lost in their own thoughts as the pond rippled gently with the passing breeze. In that stillness, the moral implications of their journey became clear. Their quest for truth had not only exposed a corrupt network and personal betrayals, it had also revealed the profound importance of accountability, forgiveness, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Nora reflected on the many faces of truth, the painful, the liberating, and the sometimes paradoxical nature of it. "Truth isn't always pretty," she whispered, "but it's the only thing that can set us free. We must be brave enough to face it, even if it means confronting the parts of ourselves we'd rather hide." Her words, soft and sincere, resonated deeply with both Andre and Lena. As the sun climbed higher, warming the day and dissolving the lingering chill of night, the three friends rose from the bench with a shared sense of purpose. They understood that their journey was far from over, that rebuilding trust and healing emotional wounds would take time. But in that moment, they had found clarity. The network of lies had been exposed, the betrayals acknowledged, and a new path had been forged from the wreckage of their pasts. Andre looked at Nora and Lena with quiet determination. "We have a chance to rewrite our stories," he said, "not as victims of our past mistakes, but as survivors who learn from them. Our experiences have taught us that while the truth can be brutal, it also brings the possibility of growth and redemption." Lena added, "I want to spend my life making things right. I want to help others understand that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about accepting our humanity, with all its flaws, and choosing to move forward together." Nora smiled through tears as she considered their words. "I used to think that the scars of betrayal would always define me," she admitted. "But now I see that they can also be a reminder of our strength, the strength it takes to face the truth, to forgive, and to rebuild. We are all works in progress, and every day is a new chance to choose honesty, to choose love." In that quiet afternoon, as the trio slowly made their way back to their separate lives, the moral of their long and arduous journey shone clear. The battle for truth was not won by a single confrontation or by the collapse of a corrupt network. It was won in the small, persistent acts of courage and reflection. It was in the willingness to listen to one's own heart, to admit wrongdoing, and to offer forgiveness even when it seemed impossible. For Nora, Andre, and Lena, the resolution was not an ending but a beginning, a fresh start built on hard-won lessons and the recognition that every truth, no matter how painful, carried the seeds of a better future. They understood that while they could never erase the past, they could shape their futures by choosing to live with integrity and compassion. Standing beneath a bright blue sky, with the memory of the storm still fresh in their minds, they silently vowed to honor the truth in every aspect of their lives. They would face new challenges with the knowledge that trust, once broken, could be rebuilt through honesty, empathy, and the shared commitment to making amends. And as they went their separate ways, each carried a small light, a beacon of hope born from the darkness of deception, that would guide them through the days to come. In the end, their story became a testament to the enduring power of truth and the possibility of redemption. It reminded them, and all who would hear their tale, that even when life is marred by betrayal and hardship, the choice to embrace honesty can transform pain into a stepping stone toward a brighter, more authentic future. And so, with hearts both heavy and hopeful, they stepped forward into the new day, forever changed by their journey and determined to let the light of truth illuminate even the darkest corners of their souls. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more meaningful stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.